Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar, Stay in Touch Cloud PMS Configuration and User Training Series, Lightspeed Point of Sale, presented by Stay in Touch Implementation Consultant, James Lee. I'm your host, Erin Fisher, the content writer here at Stay in Touch. Today's presentation will cover Lightspeed Point of Sale and Stay in Touch Cloud PMS. In this webinar, we will cover the following topics: general configuration, restaurant listing, product and product group mappings, payment mappings, and copy mappings. We will have a short Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Feel free to submit questions throughout the presentation, and we will answer them in the order they are received at the end. And that's all I have right now. James, I'm going to hand the presentation over to you.
Thanks, Erin. All right, I'm going to go ahead and show my screen here. Can you confirm that you see my screen?
Not yet. Now I can.
Oh, perfect. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for taking time to join our webinar today. Now, this is going to be kind of a specific webinar to individual customers that are using our Lightspeed POS integration. Lightspeed is a cloud-based solution for POS for your F&B operations, and we offer a direct integration with them via the cloud. To get to the configuration area of Lightspeed, we're going to go into settings. And under integrations, we have POS integrations here, and we're going to use Lightspeed POS. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is just some of the configuration area here in the main tab of the Lightspeed integration. Here at the top, the API access configuration, we ask that you do not mess with this area here. If you do change a password or something here, or you mess with this, you could disconnect the integration. So make sure you're not messing with anything with the unique ID, the username, or the password. Default charge code. When you have an item that is coming across the Lightspeed integration to post into Stay in Touch, if there is no mapping for that particular item to a charge code, it will default to the charge code that you have selected right here. Below here, we have our default payment code. This is used in conjunction with the reporting of credit cards and cash sales from your F&B operations. You can go ahead and put a payment code here to reconcile that on the bill. So when the charges come over with the bill, you can use cash payments or credit card payments, whatever you need to reconcile the revenue on that particular check. Below here, we have our account number. This is, again, for cash and credit card reporting for those type of sales into the PMS directly. We use a posting account for all those charges to go to. It is recommended by Stay in Touch that you do use a separate account monthly. That way you don't have one account that's going to have thousands of charges by the end of the year. So we usually recommend switching this out once a month. Now you can create those accounts under the front desk accounts menu, and you could just create a posting account. You can call it like Lightspeed January 21, Lightspeed February 21. And as the month changes, part of your end of month process is you would come here to the account number and change it to the new number, which would be the new account. Over here for room charge, this is how charges for room postings are identified within Lightspeed. Usually Lightspeed provides this information. However, most of the time it is just room charge as it is listed here. Charge code for tips, for gratuities, you can go ahead and map that charge code here. If you are using floors within Lightspeed POS, which allows you to configure different parts of a restaurant. So for example, if you have a restaurant listed in your hotel, you can enable floors, which would be things like your PDR, which is your private dining room, and you have your bar section, and you have your restaurant section, and you can even do like the first floor and second floor. Depending on how you want to map all that out, you can enable the floors option here. Now, if you are not interested in reporting on cash and credit card sales during the end of day process, you can actually toggle the switch here to turn off, and that way the integration will only do room charging, and there won't be any import process of your cash and credit card sales during the end of day. The next tab over is our restaurant button. Not much to go over here, but this is where you would see the list of your restaurants. Because this is the API integration, once we get the credentials from Lightspeed, we just log into it and it pulls the restaurant information here. So you'll be able to see the restaurant name and the company as well. In addition to it pulling the restaurant name, it's going to pull over your menu items. And we have the ability to map menu items one of two ways. The first way is by product mappings. So if I click on product mappings here, it's going to pull all the menu items from the Lightspeed POS system. Give it a second to pull all that data through, and you'll see all the available products over here to be mapped. From here, I can choose to map them to a specific charge code and stay in touch here on the left. So for example, if I click on the drop down here and I go to charge code 1130, which is my bar food, over here on the right, these are my menu items, and this is where I can actually click and drag and move them over to the charge code that I want mapped to. So for example, I have apple pie here. So I can bring over apple pie to bar food. You can bring all these over. And then I can even bring down to my additional food here. I think I have like a banana bread, and I can map all these menu items to this particular restaurant on this particular floor. And so from here, and actually I'm going to do bar instead. Let me do that. I'm going to do bar. So we're going to do banana bread. And we're going to do some apple pie. And bring those individual charge codes over here. And at this point, I can go ahead and save the mappings. Now, once the mappings are saved, I can then go to my next area under floors. So if I have, kitchen, I have bar, I have restaurant, I can go ahead and map those individual items under each particular floor. So you can get it detailed as you want. If you don't really care about the floors, you can keep floors disabled, and all you'll need to map is just the restaurant, and you don't need to worry mapping each floor. Now that is one way to map them. The other option here is that you can actually map product groups. In Lightspeed POS, when you create menu items, you actually group them up into what they call categories, and those categories come over as product groups. And I personally like this way of mapping because it's a little bit easier. I don't have to go in and map every single menu item. I could just map the product groups, and all those items under that particular group will map to the exact charge code that it needs to. Now, it's important to note that you can only do one or the other. You'll notice that, I have my bar products mapped here. Oops. What was that? 30, sorry. There we go. So I have these items here, but you'll notice if I go into my product group mappings and I start mapping food items here, that mapping will go away in the product because it will take precedence of what I'm doing here. So for example, if I go into look for food and I change this to bar, there we go. So if I change that to food and I map all the different food items here, and then I go back to my product group mappings, and I change this to bar and go back to bar food. You'll notice the actual individual items are gone because it's now mapped under product group. And vice versa, if I was to go back into product mappings and map those individually, it would wipe out the product group mapping as well. The next option here is for payment mappings. This is really only applicable if you want to be able to have separate accounts for different payment methods. So for example, if you wanted a payment, an account specifically for your Visa cards, an account specifically for MasterCards, and one separate for cash, this is where you would go in. It's going to pull a list from your accounts here. So I would select Lightspeed Amex if I had something like that. For example, I have a Lightspeed Amex December, and then I would come here and pull my Amex payment codes to that particular posting account. Now, if it's not important for you to have separate accounts for each individual payment method, you don't have to fill out this information. All the charges will go to the account number you have listed here, and that's just going to show all cashes and all credit card options will be listed there. And the last thing we want to talk about is the ability to copy mappings. So you noticed earlier when we did the category groups, we can actually copy this. So for example, if I know that everything that's mapped for bar is also going to be the same for my kitchen, I can say I want to map all the configuration in for restaurant 1 bar, and I'm going to copy it to my kitchen area. So that way you don't have to do the mappings for every outlet if some of them are going to be the same. And I can proceed. And this does take a few minutes. It does kind of proceed in the background. I can check and see if it's done yet, but there's a chance it might not be done quite yet because it does take a couple minutes here. But from here, I can go ahead and click on kitchen and bring my bar food. And there, I do have those categories mapped already there for me, as it did copy from the bar floor setup that I did earlier. All right, so not a lot to review here. That's going to kind of wrap up our webinar on Lightspeed POS configuration. With that, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen here and turn it back over to you, Erin.
All right, thanks, James, for that insightful presentation. Just switch back to my screen. All right, and so with that, I'll open the floor up to questions. Remember, you can submit questions in the question box in the middle of the control panel. So I don't see any questions yet. I'll give everyone a few more seconds to enter those. All right, since there are no more questions, I'd like to take to the floor to offer some final thoughts. So today we covered general configuration, restaurant listing, product and product group mappings, payment mappings, and copy mappings. With that, I'd like to conclude our presentation. Thank you all for coming, and if you have any additional questions, feel free to email me at erin.fisher@stayintouch.com. Thanks again.